Hello, everyone. Welcome to Incorporating AI into Your Shipley Process with Amy McGady and Marty Hum from Shipley Associates. My name is Chloe Norwood. I am the Field Marketing Specialist at Visible Thread. Before we begin, I'd like to note the free content box on the right side of your screen. We have included some free assets for you all to check out. There will be a Q&A session, so feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation. And now I will pass it over to Amy and Marty.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here again this year at Optimize 24. Thank you, Visible Thread, for having us. Throughout our talk, I'll watch the question box and I'll hold on to questions and we'll answer them at the end. So please, throughout, share your thoughts and your questions with us. As Chloe said, I'm Amy McGady and I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategic Services at Shipley. And I'm here with my colleague, Marty Hum, who is our Vice President of Innovation. And today we're going to talk about three major topics, and we'd like you to leave today with three takeaways. The first, we'd like you to leave with an understanding of the core task at hand in adopting AI in BD. Then to see that your Shipley process is what AI builds on, that it doesn't replace that or shortcut that, and then learn how to begin to explore an adoption of AI with Shipley BD AI. So those are the three things that we'll be talking about today, and we're so glad you're joining us. So before we get started, we just want to set the stage a little bit about what we're seeing as we start 2024 and we talk to clients and industries and sectors across the world. What we have here is we see a lot of CEOs and BD directors are being incentivized and under a lot of pressure to adopt AI in 2024. We see proposal managers and bid managers thinking through and wondering how can they use AI to help their business development process, and how can they deal with the fact that contributors are using AI for section content. And then finally, we know that there are a lot of proposal writers that are really still considering, how are they going to integrate the use of AI in their daily practices? Is AI going to be good or not so good for their livelihood? And then as you're probably seeing today and throughout other presentations in industry, there are a lot of software platforms for AI, and these tools claim to do a lot. So how do you kind of wade through all of that information to make good choices? And as I turn things over to Marty, just want to give a little preview of what Marty's going to cover. Marty's going to be talking about a recent report from the International Monetary Fund, so zooming out a little bit about AI and then zooming in and talking specifically about generative AI and BD, proposal management, proposal writing. So Marty, I'll turn things over to you.
Thanks, Amy, and hi, everyone. Yeah, so this IMF report came out in January, and it continues to set the stage for some of the things that we're seeing, some of the things we're talking about here today. And while it's not looking at the BD profession specifically, what the report is looking at is a variety of professions around the world. And I isolated some statistics that are maybe a little bit more relevant to our audience here today, what they label Great Britain and USA, and a variety of kind of generic professions. And what the impact may be from artificial intelligence technology. And they label two dimensions. One is exposure, and the other is complementary. Exposure, pretty easy to understand how much will AI impact that particular profession. And then complementary, what they call high complementary and low complementary. Low complementary is that this is an area where potentially AI technology may outright replace those jobs. And, you can agree or disagree with that, but that's what they're calling it in this. And then, but high complementary is very interesting because they see a number of professions actually being enhanced by AI technology. And what I take away from this, if you sort of mentally draw a Venn diagram over the types of professions that they call out here, that might make up something if they did look closely at the business development professions. You see they have professionals, managers, services and sales type people. What you see is that there's a fair amount of high exposure or actually no exposure. So that tells you that there may be aspects of what we do that actually they don't see as being impacted by AI at all, but then also the highest proportions of high complementary. And that's a big part of what we're talking to you here about today is Shipley's view on how our profession in business development actually represents a huge opportunity to be enhanced by AI technology and what we do, what we deliver to our customers, our clients, and so forth. And so one of the key ideas that we need to be talking about more when it comes to the impact of AI on our profession is that as the technology gets better and individuals and organizations really get good at using AI, it will actually raise the bar for what proposals even look like. In other words, in the coming years, if it becomes possible for imaginative, stellar BD professionals to develop amazing multimedia proposals, interactive proposals, let's say virtual reality proposals, it may not matter that AI can generate perfect winning written narrative proposals in a way that may feel actually old-fashioned by then. So like with every major period of innovation, it's more about adapting to new possibilities than about the obsolescence of the old way or the old job. But focusing here on the present, we do have to get there first. And like I've been saying, there are just massive advantages to be realized from adopting AI and BD the way we work today. And these are things like save time, improve proposal quality, and so forth, things that I'm sure you've been hearing. And to help our industry do exactly that, we've created Shipley BD AI, an entire new series of guidebooks, trainings, and consulting coming from Shipley for the express purpose of guiding our profession in the adoption of AI in the smartest way possible. Our first offering under BD AI is the first book called the Shipley BD AI Primer, an introduction to adopting AI for business development. And this book is a very nice blend of introductory information, techniques you can use immediately, a roadmap for practical progressive AI adoption, and a deep dive into what it really means to apply AI to the work that we do. I'm going to give you a preview of 3 big pieces of that, which really make up the heart of this BD AI philosophy. First, the BD AI approach helps us understand how we actually gain meaningful value from using AI. The point of AI is that it simulates what we think of as our own cognitive abilities. So we start by looking at that in the most basic sense. By understanding what AI does maybe better than humans, what humans do better than AI, we get a strong idea of how to combine the best of those in a strategic way and apply it to BD skill sets and then into complex BD lifecycle tasks. That is what leads to the value from using AI, just like any optimized partnership you can think of does. It's about bringing together the best of what each party brings to the table. Next is the BD AI process. This is how AI is put into action. And there are 2 vantage points to this in terms of process. At a high level, the breadth of your organization's process, whether that is just proposal development or potentially the entire BD lifecycle, and then at a granular level, looking at any individual task within that process. The beauty of it is that your existing process is the foundation for your BD AI process. To enhance any one task within your process, follow the steps to get a very high quality output from an AI chat type of tool at this stage. The way you prepare your inputs and outputs from that task fits the AI technique seamlessly into your overall process. And that builds up over time to where the breadth of your process is covered by AI accelerations that each of you performs in your individual roles the whole way through. And here's the key benefit of that. You get to realize value immediately from successful uses of AI without risking disruption to your existing process. And then finally, this is the BD AI adoption framework, which follows an easy to understand metaphor of crawl, walk, run, and fly. This is important for 2 reasons. 1, it gives you a benchmark for your progress in learning and adopting AI. But 2, it sets practical expectations for costs, realized value, and individual and team skill levels at each step, which acknowledges that it is a journey and not something where you can flip the switch of an amazing software solution and automate your proposal center. Because remember from earlier, the bar rises on proposals themselves as we progress through the journey. And Shipley BDAI helps guide you and your organization on that journey. Amy?
Thank you. So we've created our BDAI newsletter. You can sign up for it if you'd like using this QR code or going to shipleybd.ai. We publish monthly news updates. You can get access to buying the book that Marty has mentioned. This week, at the end of the week, early next week, we intend to release a white paper on how to choose a software solution and what to be looking for from a technology standpoint, a growth and revenue standpoint, and frankly, a usability standpoint for proposal practitioners. So we'd love for you to sign up and become part of this news. We have a lot of exciting developments coming out this year. So if you have any questions, we kept our talk relatively short so that we could entertain questions. I don't see any yet. Marty, if we go back to that concept of crawl, walk, run, and fly, can you give us some insights on, what do those look like? Where do you think, you said you think that we're right now kind of in that crawl phase. What does that look like for most people?
Sure. Crawl is where we all start. And again, you can think of this in terms of yourself as an individual business development professional or for your organization, because these things kind of go hand in hand and one kind of leads to the other and vice versa. But essentially at the crawl stage, we are just getting oriented to a whole new technology, a whole new way of thinking about our day-to-day work, our productivity, this idea of simulated or artificial cognitive abilities. And for me, last year, that was the first I had really even paid attention to the possibilities there when some of these systems like Microsoft Copilot were announced, and of course, ChatGPT. And so the crawl is where we're getting an orientation to what this is, what this means, and wrapping our minds around the way we might put this into action. And it's about the experimentation and discovery, because a lot of these things you can't even really understand until you kind of stumble upon it, because it's very experiential. Things we talk about in the primer include the chatting mindset, which is a brand new way of interacting with technology that is actually being shown in some of these kind of product studies like that Microsoft performs, has a little bit of a learning curve. There's a little bit of a generational element there, but to chat with the computer rather than give it commands or input search terms into a search engine, this is a very different idea. And these are all the ideas that go along with that crawl phase. And the BDAI Primer book really embodies all of that. So we say by the end of that book, if you've invested in the material and worked through it, tried exercises, maybe done some of the discussion questions with your organization, then you've really initiated yourself into the walk phase. Walk phase.
No, go ahead. Good.
Oh, okay. And in the walk phase, if you could look at this kind of in terms of proportion, I would put the walk phase as maybe the longest. And this is where we are all, as individuals, are working together within our organization, building out the AI capability. And that is a huge, that is greatly represented by the BDAI process, where I describe discovering use cases and building that into your existing process. In the book, I also talk about a new type of role called a proposal acceleration specialist that might be your key sort of AI champion during this walk phase for experimenting and documenting successes and how much, trying to measure how much you're actually gaining from using AI to make sure it's not just a fancy thing to try using, for the heck of it. We always want to be realizing real benefits that impact our win rate, our capacity, efficiency, things of that nature as we adopt AI.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing in industry, don't you think, is if you're currently still in that crawl phase, you aren't alone. That even though a lot of us have been talking about AI for the last year, and it's been in the popular press a lot. What we're seeing is we're not seeing companies yet doing widespread adoption of AI, and there are still a lot of people trying to build those AI muscles. Like I know for us, even just upgrading and getting, a paid ChatGPT account so that we have something that's a little bit more sophisticated. We can't put, information in there that we need to keep secure, but we've been able to try techniques around prompting. You and I often talk about building that muscle of really treating the technology as though it's a really smart intern and moving from where we used to just Google things to where we're actually interacting in real language with the technology. And we have a few questions now from the audience. Thank you so much, all of you. I'll start at the top. Is how do you think this process, Marty, lines up with things like Shipley's 4-box structure? How do we do things using the Shipley techniques and match it with AI?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. One of the key points I keep repeating is how much the real traditional best practices and Shipley methodology enable the success through applying AI to it. So if you think, in terms of the kind of older idea of the 96-step process, it was always a little bit more academic than practical of, how do you actually perform the business development lifecycle. But then if you revisit that idea, 96 steps sounds like something that a computer could handle very well. And then with the addition of generative AI, cognitive technology, and language generation, you can really see how you can bring the rigor of a process like that to life. So something like the 4-box technique is something that now you could have no excuse to skip over. If it's something that we tend to kind of skip over when we're under pressure on tight timelines for submitting a response, and the tendency is to skip all straight to thing because you've got to get this many
Marty,
pages done in time for your red team and things of that nature. Okay, well, sorry about that. But something like your content plan or your 4-box, this is something that generative AI can help you do very quickly, so that not only do you have no excuse, you're also getting the benefit of why that best practice was established in the first place. So if you apply that to every little nook and cranny of the Shipley methodology and best practices and see how AI can help you do that every time in an enhanced way, you can imagine the benefits that come from that.
Yeah, I think so too. And we've been using, we've been doing that on our own. We'll be announcing our partnership with a software solution next week. And some of that software solution does integrate the proven techniques and tips that Shipley's been teaching for a long time, but we've been practicing with some of those as we wait for this solution to come to market in some tools like Bing Chat Enterprise and in Chat GPT. So, that's one of our questions is, what do we think about using Chat GPT on proposals? And, for me, Marty, and I'd love you to chime in if you see a different nuance to this. I think with ChatGPT and anything that's open source, that's not a secure environment, you do still have to be very cautious about putting in any confidential or proprietary information. That may be different with a team license, but again, since I don't represent ChatGPT, I can't really speak to that. Marty, do you have any other thoughts on using ChatGPT in proposal development?
Sure. So with any system, like Amy said, you have to be really certain, or at least manage the risk of what are the privacy concerns. Are they using your chats and information that you upload in training the model? Does that have the potential to be exposed to others, to competitors, and so forth? So you have to understand that before you use anything. But that being said, these tools that are widely accessible, like ChatGPT for low or no cost, do have their place, especially in that crawl phase. Because if you are learning techniques with hypothetical examples, or are you taking the time to sanitize what you're putting in so that it's not attributable or recognizable, but then you could easily unredact the content that you get out of it. So there are steps you could do to leverage a quote unquote unsafe or unsecure tool in a way that might still help you learn to use AI and to gain value for a low cost or no cost way. So that's that. In my opinion, there is a place for those widely available consumer generative AI systems in the early phases. Now, when you get into walk, heading into run, run is highly characterized by the streamlined nature of your BDAI capability that you've built for yourself or within your organization. That's going to be unique to your organization. But what you start to notice during the walk phase is that maybe some of those techniques you're using to sanitize information going into ChatGPT becomes too cumbersome, and you really want to have more freedom, but also more specificity, being able to leverage your best past proposals or capability descriptions and all that good business development data that you have. You like a chat or an AI system of some kind to be able to leverage that specifically. That's where a specialized tool from any number of these great software developers that are working in our space right now, offering these different systems, can come into play. And so what we want to try to do is provide some guidance on how to recognize what an ideal system for you and your organization might look like.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. And we have a comment in the question box that I think is a really important comment to note is, again, anything that we're saying, the most important thing that you do is abide by your company's AI policy. So if your company prohibits the use of a certain technology, we're not encouraging you to violate that policy. Then we would say, try using ChatGPT, Bing Chat Enterprise in other ways. Maybe for personal things that you do. I know, one safe technique can be sometimes like, I know I'll have it write emails for me, or if I'm trying to write something that's not sensitive, I've had it analyze. For example, I was hiring someone last year and I used ChatGPT to analyze the job description that I had put together and said, hey, prepare 10 questions and rank order them in the order that I should ask them. And that helped me go from spending an hour preparing to interview candidates down to just a matter of minutes. So I could do that information. The job description was something that Shipley had published when we started, recruiting for the job. So that was an easy way for me to use ChatGPT in a way that wasn't trying to use any kind of secure data behind it. So let me see, we've got some other questions. We have a question about, could we give some real life examples of AI in proposals? Does it help with compliance matrix? Can it help me build an executive summary? And I know, Marty, we did primarily initially using Bing Chat Enterprise. We've been able to prompt Bing Chat Enterprise to shred an RFP for us, to do a combination of research on the RFP and internet research to help us develop hot buttons. Based on those hot buttons, we've developed strategy. And then based on that strategy, we've written executive summaries. We were able to synthesize information about, are there any inconsistencies between an RFP and a statement of work or any other documents that are publicly available on an opportunity. Do you have any additional real life examples of AI and proposals that are coming to mind that you can share, Marty?
Yeah, all of those. Something just a little bit more different to expand your thinking along those lines is using the vision capabilities of the GPT-4 model with vision to sort of interpret even a complex proposal diagram and provide the alt text or the action caption from that. That's pretty remarkable. So then there are really uses all across the business development lifecycle for generative AI. It's just a matter of taking the time to identify them and try, of course, within all the guardrails that are appropriate. And so that's one of the key things that our primer material helps you to have a good grasp of how to do for yourself and for your organization. There's almost no end to the exciting uses that we run into just by going through our proposal development processes and trying things out.
Yeah, and we've seen some of the more bespoke solutions also have the capabilities built in for writing content, for writing executive summaries, for analyzing RFPs. Each one of them focus on a different part of the business development lifecycle, so they have different, pros and cons to them. We have a question about, how do you evaluate AI solutions and how do you look at them through the lens of, are they going to be really disruptive to your Shipley process or another process, or are they consistent with that? And one thing that I mentioned at the end when I was showing the QR code, which we can go back to that right now, if this is a topic that interests you, we're going to be releasing a white paper in the next few days where we've analyzed, here are the things to look for when you're evaluating software solutions. Here are things that will make sure that you've met the requirements of your chief technology officer, your chief revenue officer, and then the needs of your proposal team. So if that's something that interests you and you'd like to have that as soon as it's released, please sign up for our BDAI news and we'll be able to share that with you in a matter of days. Let me see what other questions that we have. So I have a question about, can you elaborate on prompting techniques that you've used for AI proposal writing? And how do you ensure that you're using content that follows this BDAI framework that we're recommending? So Marty, do you want to share a little bit on prompting techniques?
Sure. Now, to back up a little bit, so how do we ensure that it follows the BDAI framework? Well, part of what makes it follow the BDAI framework is that conscientiousness that you've gone all the way back to understanding what are the actual cognitive abilities being employed, how do those impact the skill sets underlying any task that you may be trying to perform, understanding where you're going to leverage your own unique skills that the AI can't perform for you, and you are going to leverage the strengths of AI that you're going to employ with you to get this job done. And what that leads you to be able to do is develop what I call in the book the prompt strategy. And it's just a little bit of articulating that, all of what I've just said. Now that goes a little bit deeper than when you're thinking about, well, what's really good prompt engineering? What's my prompt formula? So that exercise prepares you to build what I call a prompt plan, which then leads you to use our BDAI prompt formula, which is probably very similar to many of the different kind of prompt engineering trainings and resources that have that you've seen out there where you can learn to prompt AI better. But my idea here is that this one may work a little bit better for the specific business development audience, and it's all about establishing your objectives, who you are, articulating what you need AI to help you with, which comes from how you've articulated that in your prompt strategy and your prompt plan. And then there's a way of conducting that chat to drive toward recognizing the gaining the output that is high quality, that you see as good enough now that you can apply your human refinement on it, perform validations and checks that are necessary, and then harvest that chat experience for the artifact that you're working on, whether that's your proposal draft in Microsoft Word or some other thing that is kind of more of a piece of your traditional proposal process. So it's about the steps and the thoroughness of your thinking that I think makes it more of part of the BDAI framework than anything else.
Well, and one thing I think we've seen go really well and that we've helped teams lead is creating basically a community of practice within a team. So have a group of people that are working on building these prompt plans like you've laid out, Marty. We know that some of the software solutions have that already built into them, but this one is, not assuming that someone has purchased a software solution, and that we've seen teams work together to both, write responses and then, test their prompt plan and do a comparison. How well did the generative AI do compared to the human writing communities? And what lessons can we learn? And building that community of practice to try techniques, see what works, and build on those. So that's something that can work well within a team. It does take time. It takes time to be able to run that parallel process, but we think that that saves time in the long run and allows a team of people to be testing techniques and tools together. One of the questions we have is the Shipley AI process software agnostic? So I would say that the Shipley process is AI software agnostic. But as I mentioned, and we'll be announcing this soon, we are working with a software partner that integrates the Shipley methodology, and the outputs look like things that have been developed using the Shipley process. So in general, yes, we believe you can use the Shipley process using a variety of software tools. But we have one that we're working with developing, and that is the one that we will be recommending. Let me see some of the other questions we have here. Is there any AI tool or large learning model that can handle CUI data, and is that free, or are they all paid programs? To my knowledge, Marty, they are all paid programs. Do you know anything different about that?
Yeah, I would imagine, and this quickly gets out of my technical area of any kind of authority or expertise, but I think that what some of the software developers say about those types of things has to do with the underlying cloud infrastructure, and whether that environment maybe is certified or cleared, or whatever the term may be, to handle that type of information. So I would definitely defer to our developer friends to speak more in depth on those types of security type implications of the potential classification of different types of information.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. We have another question about, the fact that government RFP requirements are constantly changing. How do you use your AI tools to automate things like shredding documents, outlining, creating document libraries, and tracking responses in various sections when government requirements are something that are somewhat fluid and changing? Marty, do you have thoughts on that?
Well, and automation is really an advanced stage of this. And if I go back to the framework, automation is really a feature of Fly. So
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, I don't expect for automation to be a part of the picture really until we've gone through the run phase in a lot of ways. I think you start to maybe see some hints of automation in run. So what it really comes down to is the conscientiousness and ingenuity that we have always used to adapt to changing government requirements, those types of things, but still using the techniques that we've identified to help AI accelerate different process steps. So that may be a little bit of a disappointing answer for now, but I think it's one of those complex problems that we'll just have to, leave it to the industry at large to find solutions for.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this gets to the heart of the issue that Andrew is raising, but all of the technology solutions that we have seen either in demo or in use with clients, they're not, the functionality of the tool is not dependent on the requirements, that the tool itself is ingesting the RFP requirements just like we would as humans, and then generating responses, whether it's based on a knowledge repository, whether it's using generative AI to come up with new content. And you can prompt, you can build into your prompt strategy to be clear if information is not available, or if it's something that the technology can't generate. So I think that's less probably contingent on the RFP requirements than something else. Marty, do you think that that's true?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, let's see what other questions that we have here. Let me see. It looks like we might have answered. Oops, we have a new question coming in right now. So we have a question on does the Shipley BDAI primer cover prompting? Marty, as the author, I'll let you dive into that a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. And if that's that is the most exciting section of the book for a lot of folks. Been working with some of our professionals on this material, and that's where they really get excited about sinking their teeth into these techniques and doing some amazing things that help them in their job. So you can absolutely skip to that, and that's here in the BDAI process. There's also a nice set of appendices that go into some depth on kind of comparing the outputs of different of those commercial or consumer AI chat tools and what are the impacts of using the same prompt in a different tool under different parameters. And so, yeah, there's quite a bit of content in there just on the prompting. And then, so what I remind is that the prompting is made even better by understanding kind of the deeper dive that we go into in the overall approach and process.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite parts of the book. I love seeing, and of course that'll evolve over time as all of the technology keeps getting better and better. But I love how you have a comparison of generating content with Google Bard, with ChatGPT, et cetera, and just being able to compare. I know ourselves really early in the year, we saw a huge difference when we were using the free GPT-5 accounts that we had versus moving to a paid GPT-4 environment, and just how much better with the same prompts, the responses were exponentially better. And then does the hard copy give you access to the digital access as well? No, we are selling the book as either a digital copy or as a book through Amazon right now. So you can buy one or the other or both, but they are sold separately. Thank you for that question. And I think that we had about 15 questions. I think we've gotten to almost all of them. Thank you so much, all of you, for such a great discussion. I'm not sure if there's anything else, Chloe.
Okay, perfect. So I did see a couple of things about VT Writer come in. I wanted to note that if you missed it earlier today, our CEO and Vice President of Engineering at Visible Thread held a session on our upcoming Secure AI launch. That session will be on demand and available for everybody very soon. And if you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend watching that session, or you can book a tailored demo with us to get any specific questions answered. But I wanted to thank you both, Amy and Marty, for speaking with us today. It is always such a joy to have you both a part of our Optimize series. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure to please fill out our survey on the screen and submit any feedback you may have. The recording of this session and both the slide deck will be available on demand soon. The upcoming session is with Alif Akar-Chason. She is the Executive Vice President of Talent and Innovation at CSRS, where she will be discussing making a business case for AI technology. And Amy and Marty, if y'all don't have anything else, I'd say we're done with this session, and Alif's session will begin in the next 20 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Chloe, for having us. And thank you, everyone, for your engagement. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you on the next session.
Okay, bye-bye.